Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Let's start our video today with the story of a petty revenge on the boss's son who likes to slack off from work. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. My mom wrecked her boss's son. My mom is an attorney at a mid-sized law firm and has been for approximately 20 years. If you've ever worked for or with a small business, you probably know that a lot of stuff goes on that would never be tolerated in the corporate world. Well, there's this one douche nozzle who happens to be the partner's son. He's also an attorney. We should call him Daddy's B, or DB for short. DB can do essentially whatever he wants because both his dad doesn't care, and nobody would ever be willing to cross him and face the wrath of his father. All the attorneys work regular 5-day weeks, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. plus. Well, except our good buddy DB. DB comes to work maybe 4 days a week, and on the days he does come, he clocks in around 11 a.m. and out around 3 p.m. Now that you know the kind of little dip crap we're dealing with, on to the story. Every Saturday morning, at least one of the attorneys is scheduled to come in for a few hours to handle any new cases that come in and meet with a few clients. Well, this week, DB was scheduled to come in. My mom had decided that even though it wasn't her Saturday, she'd go in to get some of her own work done. Surprise, surprise, DB doesn't show. So now there are calls that need answering, clients showing up and whatnot that my mom's having to deal with rather than doing her own work. The secretary sends out this email to the entire department. Whoever is handling this Saturday, please contact the following prospective client immediately. So my mom responds, well, DB isn't present, so I'll call this client. Now, the thing about these kinds of emails, you're supposed to do a reply all so that it's known that the issue has been taken care of. The fun thing about reply all is everybody sees that DB screwed over my mom and that she took care of it for him. A little FU, if you will. So my mom does all of DB's work that Saturday and gets none of her own done. A few days later, she gets this email from the hero of our story. Sorry, I was looking at this schedule and thought my day was next week. My response with, came to the office today to try to catch up, but that didn't happen. You can make it up by taking my Saturday on 7/25. His response, I'm out of town that day, but we'll figure something out. My mom's. Let's just say 7/25 is your day now, and you can find someone to trade with you. So now DB is stuck with 7/25, even though he supposedly is out of town. He won't be able to find someone to cover for him because of his reputation. Mom 1, DB 0. And our second story. No background check, no entry. Obligatory, not my story, but a lifelong family friend who ran a special needs-focused daycare out of her home. I believe this happened around 5 years ago. As mentioned, she ran a daycare business out of her home, and since her child had autism and she had all the skills and equipment to handle special needs children, she opened her home to other children with similar needs. As you can imagine, this service is incredibly hard for parents to find. Around 5 years ago, the state and local governments were on a bit of a kick to revamp the rules and regulations that affected in-home daycare providers. Most were innocuous and weren't that big of a deal, like having a redundancy built into the HVAC system so that temps in the house could never drop below 63 degrees, and that water systems need to always be operable, and other such human needs-based rules. But others were major issues that seemed like the common sense rules. But it was obviously not thought through past the initial feel-good fuzzies they brought. This is where the malicious compliance begins. The county passed a new rule stating that in-home daycare providers may not allow any person to enter their home that they themselves had not run a background check on. Again, sounds reasonable and was meant to protect the children. That is until one day when the main toilet in their home started overflowing and needed immediate attention from a plumber to save the rest of the surrounding area from water damage. But remember those new regulations? She couldn't turn off the water because the new regulations that required at least one operating toilet, they were remodeling their second bathroom, so legally couldn't turn it off. She called a plumber, but legally couldn't allow him to enter the premise without running a background check herself. Obviously, she ignored these rules to save the kids and her home from damage, but word got back to the regulatory body, and she ended up with a surprise inspection later that week, where they wanted to inspect the bathroom and cite her for violations. But when the county inspector showed up at the door and asked to come in to inspect the house, she stated that she would need to run a background check on the inspector prior to entry and close the door in the inspector's face. The rules were amended later that month. Edit: to exempt the regulatory body from the background check requirements. Actually, amazing compliance. Makes us think, who are the people in charge if they can't even make regulations that have depth to handle situations like this? And our next story. Be a storage unit and free babysitter. So, we befriended a family whose kid was in my kid's class. They had recently moved to our town from out of state and were having a hard time financially. They downsized from a house to an apartment and had most of their belongings in a storage unit. They were struggling. We offered to store some of their belongings in our garage, which wasn't a big deal, seeing as they planned on buying a new house within a few months. I said it was fine, just as long as we got the garage back for winter time to park the car in. 8 months away, no problem. The guy drove a box truck for a living, so it didn't cost him anything to go unload the storage unit. My husband even spent the day helping him do this. During this time, the couple was summoned to court back out of state. Turned out the gal's father was suing her for half of the value of a home she'd purchased with her father. The argument she made was that the home was a gift, so they were entitled to the full amount. It sounded sad all around. The family was broken up over it. Anyways, when they were summoned, they asked if we could watch their son for a few days, so they could save money by not needing an extra plane ticket, plus the stress of the lawsuit, etc. We agreed and watched him for 3 days and 2 nights. A few weeks later, the gal called me and asked if I could watch their son again overnight. It was their anniversary, and they wanted to have a weekend in the city by themselves. I said I needed to think it over, that we might be busy, and I'd let her know. Quite honestly, I didn't want to watch her kid again for an extended amount of time. It was a lot of work. He wasn't the most well-behaved kid, and it was stressful on all of us, fighting incessantly with my kids over toys, demanding, and would tantrum like a preschooler when he didn't get his way. I messaged her the next day and said we could occasionally babysit for a few hours, but we weren't going to be available for overnight babysitting. She got really mad and said, "But we already booked our hotel in the city." After that, they stopped speaking to us completely, for about 3 months. Finally, I messaged her and asked why she'd ghosted us. Well, because she was mad we ruined their anniversary. I explained to her that we'd never agreed to babysit and we're not to blame. She told me she's decided to cool off our friendship. Another month went by. My husband reached out to her husband. He shrugged it off as, women. In the meantime, their belongings have still been sitting in our garage. So we asked the guy what his plans were with his belongings. We were into fall and their stuff still wasn't out, and we wanted the garage back for winter. He said, "But we haven't bought a house yet." Our agreement wasn't to store their stuff until they bought a house, it was just until winter. Then he said something about how this wasn't how you treat friends. Wait, what? We were the ones providing free storage and free babysitting to friends. We weren't interested in providing free storage to just anyone. We thought we were friends. And this isn't what we agreed to, or how a friendship works. We just asked that they move their stuff back out within the next 30 days. I put the 30-day notice in writing and mailed it. The guy spent the next 2 weeks pleading with us, making excuses that there were no storage units available to rent, hogwash, and we needed to just give him more time. It came down to the very last day. We texted that he had until 5 o'clock to move his stuff, or it's going to the curb with a free Craigslist ad. He came with an hour to spare and picked up everything in his box truck. We never heard from them again. I wonder about their sob story with the lawsuit. They probably were ripping her dad off. With friends like those, who needs enemies? And our final story. No, you're not related to the owner. This happened a few years ago now, but my first job was working as a cashier at a restaurant owned by my grandmother, GM. The restaurant was located just outside of a small town that was a little sketchy, so we'd often have people come in and demand discounts because they knew GM in high school or whatever variation they could think of for that. One day around the holidays, we had a woman come and order a large take-home holiday dinner. The way these worked was we packaged and prepared all the food. All they had to do was preheat their ovens and throw it in. Bam! Simple holiday dinner without any hassle. The only downside to this is people expected these meals to cost the same as our normal family meals. Holiday meals were around $100 to $175, while family meals were anywhere from $50 to $70 depending on the size. You already know the sub's name, so you can guess what happened. Here's the following exchange that happened the day before Christmas. Customer: hello, I'd like to order a holiday meal pack. Me: oh great, we already have plenty prepackaged and ready to go. Which size were you looking for today? Customer: oh, probably the largest one. My family's very large and they're all coming over tomorrow. Me: wonderful, so a full-size family holiday meal pack is going to come out to about $175 with tax. Customer: but that's so expensive. It says it's only $70 on the menu. Me: actually, ma'am, that's only the price for the standard family meal. So that has our regular meal without any holiday specials. So no dessert, standard choice sides, and only feeds about 5 to 7 people. The holiday meal feeds 10 to 12 and is specially made for the holidays. Customer: well, that's ridiculous. Do you know who I am? Me: no, ma'am, I'm afraid I don't. Customer: I'm GM's daughter. What's your name? I'm going to tell her you're upcharging people. Me: well, I'm sorry you feel that way, ma'am, but our prices for the holiday packs are listed there and they're on the menu. As far as your relation to GM, I know you're not her daughter, and I can't lower the price of the holiday pack at all. Customer: how dare you call me a liar? I'm going to have you fired. What's your name? Me: my name's OP. I'm GM's granddaughter. Nice to meet you. The woman then stormed out of the restaurant without ordering. The funny thing is, she did actually try to call to complain about me, but my manager saw the entire event unfold. I hated that job so much. I'm so glad I was able to leave that job not long after this had happened. Are you my real mom? Is that you? It's been so long. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.